Now, 3:32 p.m., I call to order the August meeting of the Rules and Enactments and Intergovernmental Relations Committee of the Orange County Legislature. This meeting is being transmitted live via video conference. The public can find a link to this video cast by visiting the Orange County website. That's www.orangecountygov.com, clicking on the tab for the Legislature, and locating the Rules Committee on the calendar. Please silence your cell phones, electronic devices, and while not involved in the discussion of agenda items, please select mute on your iPad, tablet, or computer. Thank you. At this time, would you please rise for a moment of silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Doreen, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Amo.
Here.
Bonelli.
Here.
Cheney.
Here.
Hines. Kulisek.
Here.
Paduk.
Here.
Hero.
Here.
Fagione.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Doreen. We have several other legislators with us here this afternoon. Welcome all. For continuity purposes, as we go through the agenda items, I'll ask those who have business before us to speak on those agenda items. I'll then turn to the members of the committee for their questions. Next, I will ask other legislators not on the committee if they have additional questions. As a reminder, at the conclusion of this rules meeting, we will convene a joint Rules and Education and Economic Development Committee meeting for the purpose of discussing Ag District 1 and 2, the annual and 8-year review. And just for electronic purposes, those who wish to stay for that meeting, we don't have to log off of this Teams meeting. We will adjourn rules, we'll take a little break so we can get our paperwork together and continue right here in this format. That being said, we'll move to the agenda for the Rules Committee meeting. And on agenda item number 1, as chairman of the Rules Committee, I bring forth this resolution, and I'll seek a motion and a second for the following. This is a resolution of the Orange County Legislature proclaiming September 17th through September 23rd, 2020 as Constitution Week. And I seek a motion and a second.
Benelli motion.
I got a motion by legislator Benelli. And I believe it on the second.
Kulisek.
Mr. Kulisek. Thank you all. And I told Chairman Brescia before the meeting that I would be using some props. And so I did bring some with me. And as many of you fellow legislators know how much I enjoy and appreciate the Constitution, I usually have several of these with me. It's a pocket Constitution, and I'm always ready to give them out to constituents, to young people, and all those who are interested to learn more about the Constitution. I have plenty of copies left, so I'll get some to you if you want them. And I just encourage everyone to recognize that this September 17th to 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of this document. One last thing I'd like to say is, in the words of George Washington, and I think he said it best about the Constitution, and he said, "The Constitution is a guide which I will never abandon." And I ask that you all consider voting for this resolution, and I'll offer it up for questions from the committee. And not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you all. We'll move to agenda item number 2, and joining us here this afternoon is County Attorney Langdon Chapman, and I seek a motion and a second for the following. And this is a request to create one Indigent Legal Services Community Program Coordinator, grade 12. This is legislative request number 141. I seek a motion and a second.
Kulisek motion.
Mr. Kulisek with the motion. Mr. Vero.
Benelli second.
Sorry, Legislator Benelli, I got Mr. Vero as the second. And
That's
and
quite all
defer-
right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
deferring to Mr. Vero, this was discussed in the PNC committee meeting on Monday, and it passed unanimously. And I'll turn the floor to
did.
you, Mr. Chapman.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you indicated, this past P&C earlier, it essentially is a continuation of our expanded Harrell Herring Indigent Criminal Defendant Program. And it's a program coordinator position. It's grant funded, and there's a contingency on it that it goes away if of course, the grant expires. So far, the state has seemed to indicate that they're going to continue to fund Harrell Herring because it's part of a court settlement in full.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. I'll open it up to questions from any legislators on the committee. Okay, not seeing any questions from legislators joining us here this afternoon. Again, not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you. Have a good day.
We'll turn to agenda item number 3. And joining us this afternoon are the commissioners for the Board of Elections, Commissioner Louise Vandermark and Commissioner Courtney Canfield Green. And I look for a motion and a second on the following. This is a request to accept and appropriate additional state revenue of $133,707.07 and apply it towards debt service, and the project can be closed. The Board of Elections received revenues of $729,362.50 under the 2006 capital project number 147 to purchase voting machines, voting booths, and election day supply cards. Total expense for the project was $595,655.43. This is legislative request number 104. I seek a motion and a second.
Motion, Kulisek.
Mr. Kulis, second motion. I'm sorry?
Paduk with the second.
Mr. Paduk with the second. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, thank you this afternoon for being with us, and anything you'd like to add to that?
No, thank you for your votes today.
Courtney, we can hardly hear you, so make sure you're speaking clearly into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I just want to thank everyone for their support today. On behalf of
Thank you. Okay, I'll offer up any questions from committee members.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Paduk.
Mr. Paduk, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Just in regards to that, not to this particular item, but with the Board of Elections, I know the chairman and I, the last time we've discussed about having a deputy commissioner for the Republican committee. I don't know if that's been appointed. And as you may have read, I think it was Ulster County or a couple other counties have hired part-time paid election workers to help with the in-person or the mail-in ballots. I know we've talked about it before. I don't know if there's any consideration as to it. I think it's a real important item to address. And the sooner we do it, the better off we'll be. So I was just wondering, maybe Courtney, I don't see Louise on here, but maybe Courtney could fill us in if there's been any discussion in regards to filling the position and hiring possibly part-timers to help you guys at the Board of Elections during this election season.
Chairman Fagione, I can address it if you wish.
Yes, Courtney, I will say this to you, Mr. Paduk. In discussions, we are going to have both Louise and Courtney in September join us in a Rules Committee meeting to go over so many of the new changes that are taking place. It seems as if every week there might be a new directive or change coming from Albany. And so in our September meeting, I look forward to having both commissioners here for more detailed discussion about what to expect in the upcoming election. And I'll turn the floor to Courtney if she has additional comments.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a Republican deputy commissioner will be starting here in the next few weeks. And as far as the part-time position per diem, we will have extra election workers come in to help us facilitate election. Yes, that's in the process.
Okay.
And it will be at the next meeting.
I'm fine with that. Thank you. I could hardly hear you, but maybe, I don't know if on your iPad or whatever you're using, maybe you can turn the volume up, or I'm not sure because I could hardly hear it. I got most of it anyway.
Yeah, I can barely hear it either.
Maybe the chairman has any comments on it too? I know we discussed it to make sure, because at first I don't think they're even gonna fill the deputy position. Have they talked with you, Steve, about any of that or no?
Yeah, I think they're definitely planning on doing it. And I spoke before, and I definitely see an absolute need for it. So I can barely hear Courtney,
Okay.
but I think
Right.
Courtney said that it's in the works, right?
Well,
Go ahead.
if I may, from what I heard from Courtney, she said that within the next few weeks, if I'm not mistaken, she will have that position filled. Is that correct, Courtney?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And we look forward to having both Courtney and Louise in September to give us an update on the upcoming election. Mr. Paduk, I don't know if you're aware, as so many of us are learning every day. It seems as if Albany, through executive order and different, specifications, things are changing as we speak in terms of the upcoming election. So I look forward to having both of them here in September to discuss this at great length.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions involving the resolution before us?
Jim Kulisek.
Mr. Kulisek, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, the debt service, the money's going to go towards general debt service countywide, or is it for capital projects that were incurred by the Board of Elections?
Courtney, can you answer that?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can he repeat the question? I apologize.
Yes, the debt service that's going to be the money, $133,000 is going to be applied to. Is it debt service generated by capital projects at the Board of Elections, or is it general countywide debt service?
I'm pretty sure it goes towards the voting machines that we've already incurred the expense for.
Okay. It seems as if there was a balance even after we bought those voting machines, and I was just curious what this was going to apply to.
I can certainly research that and get back to you.
Very good, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kulisek. Any additional questions from legislators?
Mr. Chairman Benelli,
Legislator Benelli, the floor is yours.
thank you. I think we should take note that the project we're talking about is 14 years old. It was from 2006. So I found that this was kind of jumped out at me. Courtney, do you have any explanation? And you may not, because you may be new to this, and not as familiar. But why did it take so long to be able to get reimbursement and to close out this project?
Katie, honestly, that's the question I have to ask. I'm not as familiar with it. And I would have to do more research on this matter. So I would have to get back to you on it. And I do apologize for that.
No, that's quite all right. And I really wasn't, I know you're familiar to the position, so you probably weren't intimately involved 14 years ago with this.
Right.
And even if you were, it's a matter of dusting off our memories to see. Because it appears that we spent more than we got initially, and this is going to bring us up to what we were supposed to have, and it took 14 years to do it. This is another situation we have with Albany in that, we're left with a deficit at all times. So I just wanted to point that out to the committee, that's all. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. And thank you, Courtney. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Legislator Benelli. Not seeing additional questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Courtney. Okay, moving right along. Joining us this afternoon is the Commissioner of Planning, Alan Sorensen. Agenda item, we'll look at item 4 and letter A. I'll be seeking a motion and a second on the following. This is a request to apply, accept, and appropriate New York State Department of Transportation Public Transportation Modernization and Enhancement Funds. The funds will be used for the construction and capital purchases related to the Middletown Multimodal Transportation Center, $2,592,943. These funds are 100% state money. No county match is required. Upon approval, a new capital project will be created, and this is legislative request number 131. I seek a motion and a second.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Padu. And I'll make the second myself. Mr. Sorensen, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Middletown Transportation Center project has been around for a number of years. At one point, the proposed project was going to be spearheaded by Shortline Coach USA. They have withdrawn their interest in moving forward and completing the project. And so the city of Middletown had reached out to us to see what we might be able to do to assist in helping to complete this project. It is a necessary project as part of our Transit Orange transportation system. And so we have identified the modernization enhancement program funding through state DOT. We have the funding available. We are working with the city of Middletown as well as the county Department of Public Works and Parks. This project is situated in the area within a downtown where the actual scope of the project traverses the Heritage Trail. And so part of our involvement is to ensure that the design of this transportation center is in harmony with the Heritage Trail, does not impede the Heritage Trail. And so we're working with the city to ensure that it meets all of those objectives while also providing an important transportation center to serve the community in Middletown.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Middletown obviously is experiencing a revival with some economic development money as well. So this seems to tie hand in hand with that.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
All right, I'll open up questions from legislators on the committee. Not seeing any, I'll open it up to any questions other legislators may have. All right, you guys are great. And this is 100% state money, so no capital or no county match is required. And that being said, I'm going to call the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. We'll turn to letter B, or sometimes I call it number B. And this, I'll be seeking a motion in a second on the following. A request to accept and appropriate grant funds from the New York State Urban Development Corporation, DBA as Empire State Development, and authorize the county executive to enter into any and all agreements or contracts necessary to secure and implement this grant. This is a Census 2020 complete count project, which will provide funding to support activities to gain a complete population count in Orange County, including advertising and outreach. And this request, this request will replace resolution number 383 of 2019. This is legislative request number 142, and I seek a motion and a second, please.
Motion, Kulisek.
So moved, Cheney.
Motion by Mr. Kulisek, second by Mr. Cheney. And Mr. Sorensen, I believe someone has hijacked my screen here.
Okay.
Mr. Sorensen, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So this is funding that is coming through New York State Empire State Development Corporation. It was actually promised to the county last year, and then with the whole COVID crisis, this money got put on hold until about a week ago, where we received notice from the state that we had a few days to submit an application. The funding to be provided is half of what was originally proposed, and so the grant amount is for $216,991. This money will be used for the Census 2020 outreach. Some of the money will be distributed to our not-for-profit partners. And as you know, getting a complete count on a census is very important. It affects our future funding streams for a variety of federal formula grants moving forward. And so we jumped on this opportunity. The application is in, and we already have a draft agreement that the state has, grant disbursement agreement that the state has provided to us.
Well, I know that you guys work very hard at this, and seems as if the goalposts have changed and the parameters have changed almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's been a challenge.
No doubt about it. I'll open up for questions from legislators. I see Mr. Amo, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Amo, the floor is yours.
Commissioner, you may be addressing it under number C, as the chairman says. But I guess I'm wondering, how is this money distributed throughout the county? Will be it distributed? If you want to wait and address it later when you talk about the census, that's fine.
Well, the funding is the state pre-identified some not-for-profit partners, and so when they sent us the new application, we had to work within the parameters of what the state defined. So the funding will be distributed to these not-for-profit partners who will then, have a variety of tools that they'll be utilizing to increase the outreach and get better participation in Census 2020. Actually, a lot of what is proposed to be purchased are kind of giveaway type items like PPE things, hand sanitizer, census things, and things of that nature. We had a very limited amount of time to turn around the grant application. They have till September 30th to expend funds. The state told us to jump, and so we have been jumping to respond to this request.
Will the presentation later talk about who those partners are, or can you get us a list of them?
We can provide you with a list of the partners, yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up I have Mr. Kulisek.
Thank you, Chairman. I was curious on how much information has been coming in on the counts for census, percentages from the areas like Newburgh area, any area. Have people been reporting on a regular basis on how many people have already filled out the census in the county?
I'm going to
Yes.
jump in real quick. Mr. Kulisek, that's a great question. And as Mr. Amos said, I think that'll be saved. Coming up after this letter B is letter C, which is the census update, where Mr. Sorensen is going to go into a little more detail on that. But if we can just, this is to enter into this agreement here in letter B, and then we'll get into letter C, where we can discuss more about the census update.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'm not trying to cut you off, Mr. Kulisek. I just want to keep it consistent here. So, next up, I have Mr. Cheney.
Leader Ramo took all my thunder and asked the questions that I was going to ask. So I look forward to getting those answers. I'm a little disappointed that this is coming so late in the game and with such a restrictive time frame. I would think that the state could have done a better job at giving us and the rest of the counties the opportunity to really get after this in a way that had a reasonable timetable to it. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and I certainly appreciate the efforts of county planning and the census team to do as much as they possibly can to get a fair census of Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Next up, I have Chairman Brescia.
Yeah, just, Alan, I read somewhere, I heard somewhere recently that Sullivan County had very poor compliance thus far, and I know you would probably know that firsthand. Do you plan on, through those pitfalls you came across up there to get better compliance down here? I know Megan Tennerman explained quite a bit to us a few months back, but and she had some good thoughts when she came to committee. But do you have any, firsthand insights on how to get better compliance? Not to put you on the spot, but.
No worries.
Mr. Brescia, just as I did to Mr. Kulisek, those topics will be brought up in letter C as we do the update. Let's just stick
Okay,
to
I'm
B
sorry.
right now, which is to
I
accept and
wasn't listening
appropriate
like I
grant
should.
funds.
Sorry.
And I'm not trying to cut you guys off. I just want to keep the flow.
No, I wasn't listening as well. I did hear you say that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I gotta be fair to Mr. Kulisek and to Mr.
Absolutely. I totally agree. As a former rules chairman, like Ms. Benelli and Mr. Amo, I want to be respectful.
So if anyone has additional questions related to the topic of accepting and appropriating the grant funds, I will allow them the pleasure of the floor. And not seeing hands raised.
Lujan.
Mr. Lujan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also, it'd be really great to see which organizations are going to be getting funds for that, because I know that there are multiple organizations working across the county. I know a few here in the city of Newburgh that have been trying their best as they can, despite, even with all the circumstances that are going on. But it would definitely be something that we would definitely need. It is unfortunate that it's coming so late. This is, we only have weeks now at this point, it seems. So, it will definitely be helpful. Thank you.
All right, and last, I have Legislative Counsel Reed. You have your
Yes.
hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just from an historical perspective, I just want to confirm that if everyone recalls, this all started with the county setting up and the legislature intended to set up an account for $34,000 to assist with the census, and then Mr. Church identified federal funding that was coming in, which we accepted in 2019 under Resolution 383. And actually, so we've been using those monies, but this is a reduction of that original amount that we were set to receive. So it's not necessarily new money; it's the same money but reduced.
Thank you, Thank you, Legislative Counsel.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Paduk, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For Mr. Sorensen, I think you mentioned that the $16,991, I think that's the amount. You talked about face mask and hand sanitizer. I'm not quite sure why that would be appropriated for that use when it's so important, because our census numbers are so far down that why would we be doing that? I know it says marketing, advertising, and outreach. So is that trying to be worked in conjunction somehow to make people come and do the census? I mean, that's the only thing I could see.
Just to respond to that, I mean, I should have cited a few more examples. So some of it will be used for strategically to place kiosk in high pedestrian areas. And so some of those giveaways are just an enticement, to get people to strike up a conversation. But there will also be, they're talking about conducting some Zoom party meetings as a way to outreach to the community, some digital marketing as part of this. So as you know, with the pandemic, door-to-door, face-to-face outreach is not possible. So the groups, that are will be receiving this funding have come up with some creative approaches and to promote the necessity for the census and encourage people to participate.
And you're going to discuss them during the next letter, next C, the update?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Paduk. And I see there are some hands that are still raised, but I think everyone has asked the questions related to the acceptance and appropriating of the grant funds. And that being said, I will call the question on letter B and ask all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now I'm going to ask Mr. Sorensen, as and I know you're very well prepared for this today, I just need a motion and a second for the discussion on the census update.
I'll move it, Chairman. Paduk.
I'll second it, Benelli.
All right. So I know everyone has had their hands up waiting, and I know Mr. Sorensen and staff have been very diligent in their efforts. Mr. Sorensen, the floor is yours, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. First, I just want to compliment Megan Tenorman. She has really spearheaded the census update, has been a real champion in terms of getting the word out and encouraging participation. So To put it in perspective, right now, Orange County has a self-response rate of 62.7%. It's actually very good. The self-response rate statewide is 59.8%. So, we're above the state average. There is, within the county, I'm just, excuse me as I'm navigating my screen here. There are different response rates, within the county. Some communities are doing better than others. And I just need to zoom into my map so I can give you a little more detail on that. So the some of the communities that are doing very well are the town of Chester, where the response rate's actually over 70%.
Thank
And
you.
and there are other communities that I do apologize. I'm navigating my computer screen at the same time, so it's not quite cooperating as well as I like. Newburgh, the town of Newburgh's self-response rate is actually 69%. I'm trying to zoom into the city. My apologies. It's not cooperating with me. I'm gonna come back to that. So, to follow up on some of the questions on the grant project. So there are in effect really four recipients of that grant funding. County of Orange being one. So we're going to get a small percentage of that. So we will be using the funding to administer the grant, process the funding to the not-for-profit corporations. We're going to purchase and distribute personal protective equipment with census logo through various county departments, community organizations, and subgrantees. And we're also looking to sponsor radio advertisements for 2 popular radio stations, over 430-second spots over the next 4 weeks to encourage people to get out and complete their census survey. So we think that's an effective way of using the limited funding that we have, especially this late in the game. But most people do have access to radio if they're driving, if they're a place of work or whatever. So I think it's a good way to get the word out. So some of the organizations that received funding, we had the other not-for-profit partners include Jewish Family Services. Then we have another agency that's identified is Maternal Infant Services Network. We have the Ramapo Catskill Library System and the Regional Economic Community Action Program, RECAP. So those were the 4 entities that were identified to help us to distribute and get the information out there in the census.
Okay, so before I open up to some questions, and we have lots of them, I just got a couple for you, Mr. Sorensen, and that is, you had mentioned our number at 62.7 compared to the state, so we're doing a little bit better than the state number for self-reporting. Yes. How would we compare to how we were in, say, 2010? Do you have any data on that?
It's actually very close to where we were in 2010, and I attribute that to really the outstanding efforts of, Megan really putting her heart into this program, and of course our not-for-profit partners, and emphasizing the the value and the importance of responding to the census.
And my last question before I open it up to the floor is, can you tell us some of the schedule changes that have taken place in terms of the reporting deadlines? And can you also tell in which ways people can take part in the census themselves?
Okay, so with respect to the, it's a two-part question, I know. So in terms of initially there was supposed to be, beginning in April, there was supposed to be a door-to-door outreach. Obviously with COVID unfolding, all of that was put on the back burner. And now we're at this point of, really having to use a variety of, digital forum, radio, limited public outreach, by being in locations where there are, we could put up a kiosk or something to get information out there. So that's been a challenge, but so how can people respond and go online and go to the census website and complete a survey that way. There are people may be getting notices, second notice sent to their place of residence. Even I did fill out my survey, but earlier I had received like a little door hanger that was left on my office door, asking for a response to the census, and they included the form in there. So there are a variety of ways that people can respond. Excuse me, but it's very the census response is for Orange County is critically important because as I mentioned earlier, many of the federal grants that are received are based on population. Also, when you think about statewide redistricting, even at the congressional level, that's based on the census population. So, getting a complete count means that Orange County is fully counted, and that whatever funding is that the county is eligible for, we're receiving the full amount of that funding. Without a complete count, that's we're losing out.
And what's the deadline for people to get their census in?
That is, I should have that question at the answer to that question, and I apologize for that. I was hoping to have Megan here today with me, but she's actually out today. So I could see if I can find this real quick, but
Okay, we can get follow-up from her as well. And so what I'm going to do to keep the flow moving along is I have a list of people who have hands up, and in the order that I see, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to start with Legislator Kulisek.
I just answers on percentages, but he has to dig that information out, so I can wait for that information.
yeah, with City of Newburgh, I know that came up. That response rate currently is 41.7%. Were there other communities?
I found this on the web.
Yes, it is available on the website. If you go to 2020census.gov, response rates. There's a interactive map, and so you can click on your municipality and.
Your request.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kulisek. Next, I'll turn to, I have Legislator Benelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one quick question, Alan. When it comes to the local municipalities, our towns, villages, and cities, are they receiving any funding towards this effort? Or is the funding just coming to the county?
This funding specifically came to the county and our not-for-profit partners, this particular grant. So it's not going to.
And are there any funds available that would be going to towns, villages, and cities?
Not to my
that you're
knowledge.
aware of?
Okay. Not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. And here again, I kind of picked up a little bit, but Mr. Paduk had mentioned it, that the monies would be spent on PPE because initially this money should have been dispersed in 2019 before PPE. So obviously
Oh,
we have a lot
exactly.
of things needed for this that we don't want to go, by the wayside. And we have other
Yes.
funds that we can access for PPE. So I just wanted to bring that up, but Mr. Paduk had picked up on that as well. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
Next, I'll turn to the man himself, Mr. Paduk, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. In regards to Megan Tennerman, she's been great with this. She actually did a presentation at Wallkill Town Board with me before the pandemic hit. It was very thorough, and I continue to try and encourage people because we all know how important this is to the county. Is there a list that maybe you could forward to the legislature and have them emailed to us in regards to responses from the municipalities throughout Orange County? Is that possible, or?
There is we could probably we could provide a list, but there is also an interactive website that the census has where you can actually go on and select your municipality. So you can select Orange County. The website is 2020census.gov, and you can actually go in, select New York State, and then select, if you're looking at a city, you can select cities, and there's another function for town and village. But I can speak with Megan about compiling a list of the current response rates for each municipality. It is dynamic, so those will change, as more people respond.
Okay, and it says, I looked it up, the 2020 census was scheduled to stop the end of July. The deadline has now been extended to mid-August, doesn't give a direct date. So
Okay.
It should be over just about now, where we're going to start doing as much outreach as we can for who haven't responded. So that's all I know. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paduk. Next hand I
You're
see
welcome.
raised is Legislator Cheney. Barry?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a thought that might be able to capture some of the individuals who may not have filled out their census yet. And if you have these giveaway items, it may be helpful to distribute those to the local food pantries throughout the county so that individuals that use that service could receive the information and possibly they might be an undercounted population.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cheney. I'm looking to the right here, so pardon me as I scroll down the screen. Any legislators have additional questions?
Lujan.
Legislator Lujan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that update. I have a few concerns. So the one being that you say 41.7%. Last time we did the census in the city of Newburgh, I believe it was about 57%. It was amongst the lowest in the Hudson Valley, in the region, like throughout the region, we were amongst the worst. At 41.7%, that is a really, 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 really small number for a city that has 30,000 people, and considering the fact that we're also the city where a lot of those wraparound services exist. I'm deeply, deeply concerned about how low those numbers are, and I really, really would like to know what kind of critical plan you have to tackle the city of Newburgh's numbers, because last time we were, I think, about 50%. Around this time, maybe actually that was 3 weeks ago. Excuse me. So 3 weeks ago, we would have been about 50% to kind of be on par to where we need to be now, and we're probably not going to be anywhere near 57%, which is unfortunate as is. But at least to have gone to 50 would have been at least somewhat reasonable. I don't know if we're going to get there either. So what is the push to work in the city of Newburgh? We have a very large Haitian population. We have a very large Spanish-speaking population. As you know, all populations are going to be counted in this. So what is going to be the work to kind of engage those populations that are sometimes not always as quickly as seen? And then the other thing is, I was confused to see why Civic Engagement Table, which is a nonprofit that has basically led most of the stuff going on for census in our city for the most part, why they were not included for funding. I'm happy to see that the other organizations got it. They all do amazing work. I've worked with Recap. I know their work. But Civic Engagement Table, I know they've been on the front lines all throughout census, working, creating kiosks, doing the work with very, very little support. And 6 months ago, before this all happened, they were amongst the organizations that were mentioned as individuals that we should be supporting. So curious why there was not support there. And again, just very deeply concerned about where we are right now in the city of Newburgh for these numbers, considering, as you said, the money that goes to help the programs that help serve our populations, particularly our populations of need and special need, are in the city of Newburgh, are in the city of Middletown, and those are precisely where the numbers are the worst in history. Thank you.
No, your concerns are well taken. We literally had like 3 days to respond to the state's request for this funding, and the funding should have been forthcoming, as we all agree, months and months and months ago, before this whole COVID crisis hit. With respect to a specific game plan for Newburgh, I will coordinate with Megan on that. I think we have the radio advertisements. I think there's an opportunity there to have radio advertisements in multiple languages so that we can reach out to the community, and would welcome your suggestions on that as well, in terms of how you think we might be able to better reach out to City of Newburgh and Middletown. So I know, unfortunately, Megan's not here today. She's really the person that I have spearheading this effort, and she's doing a fabulous job. So, we'll put our heads together and do what we can to, help to drive those numbers up and get a better response rate.
I'd love to sit down and talk. And also, just like I said, Civic Engagement Table, they have been doing the work on the ground. And I mean, absolutely impressive work, very selfless work. Volunteers that really have been doing this work of love, really. And so I'd really love if we could maybe set something up. We can do that offline, but I definitely think that sometime this week, time is definitely of the essence. And anything I can do to help on the ground, I'm happy to do so, both here and in the city of Middletown, if needed as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Thank you, Legislator Lujan. And just for a moment, if I may, the first item in today's agenda was to recognize the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to speak about this on the floor in 2 weeks, but it is in the Constitution itself, the U.S. Constitution, that it is specified that it's the federal government's responsibility to take part in the census and to do the census. We are a county government, and I've talked to Mr. Sorensen about this and my concerns in using county taxpayer money for a federally obligated responsibility. And I've talked to him at length about that. I've made this point known to our state leaders. So Legislator Lujan, my suggestion is that we need to do, if we find that our numbers are lower than what we've anticipated, we need to work better with our congressmen, our 2 U.S. senators, and if have to, we could call the president himself, because it is a responsibility of the federal government to do the census, not the county government. And if they're shirking their responsibility, be it in financial or in boots on the ground, obviously this year being what it is, then we need to hold them responsible. And I just want to let Mr. Sorensen know, I know him and his team have been working tirelessly. And Mr. Lujan, you've made it clear that the volunteers and people in your community there have not only just worked hard, but are willing to work harder. So we need our federal partners to step up. Seems oftentimes that it's the county that's always bearing the brunt, whether it's state funding for our community college, and this time the federal government's responsibility for the census. So I'm going to go off my soapbox now, but just wanted to point that out.
Lujan.
Mr. Lujan, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo and absolutely agree with you that, in these very challenging times, it's true that, depending on federal and state government has been a very, very big challenge, particularly with their lack of money as well. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly made a lot of changes for everyone. But I will also highlight that while I agree, one of the things that has grown in the last two or three decades is that the focus of policy and action has fallen more and more on local governments. And so while our state and federal government might fail to address our needs, it is our responsibility as leaders, both at the local and the county levels, to create policy that will in fact push the state and the federal government. And I think we've done that, particularly with things like the college and so on, because we know where our heart is and we know that we want to invest in our community. So this is one of those things we cannot simply put this, there's money that's going to be left on the table if we don't address the numbers for the census, and it'll be highly unfortunate. And when we talk about things like affordable housing and transportation, and every legislator I know wants those kind of funding for their community, this is going to be a challenge that we're all going to want. I know that, in Port Jervis, you guys want transportation just as much as we want in the city of Newburgh, for instance.
I'm not so sure I'm ready to make a constitutional amendment to say it's the county's responsibility to take part in the federal census. But that being said, any additional questions from any legislators? Not seeing any. Mr. Sorensen, I know that you've had a lot on your plate, and coming up, we're going to discuss it at length. And I know Megan has really been your point person on the census. And so I'll invite all my fellow legislators to reach out to Mr. Sorensen, reach out to Megan, and coordinate with them as best and as you see fit to make this as big a success as possible. So, Mr. Sorensen, I thank you for your time on letter C. Just a reminder now, upon the conclusion of this rules meeting, we will convene a joint rules and economic development committee, economic and education development committee, for the purpose of discussing agricultural districts 1 and 2, the annual and 8-year review. For all those who wish to stay, we don't have to log off of this forum that we're here now. But what we are going to do is I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the rules meeting. We're going to pause so our staff can get ready, and then we're going to come back, and Legislator Ruskevich is going to spearhead the joint E&E and Rules Committee meeting. So that being said, the agenda is clear for the Rules Committee meeting, and I seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Paduk.
Second, Vero.
And Mr. Vero on the second. So that concludes the rules meeting. Our staff, and they have worked tirelessly to make this happen. Our staff is going to get set up so that we can have the joint E&E and Rules Committee meeting. And I'm going to put the mute button on, and Legislator Ruskevich, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. I guess we're going to take a minute here for staff to get set up, and you just let me know when you're ready to go, and we'll roll.
I'm ready to go whenever you are, Paul.
Okay. Do we have everybody here from E&E? You want to do a quick roll call?
I did make a phone call to a couple that I don't see on, but so far, you ready for roll call?
How many are we missing?
Looks like we're missing 2.
2. Yeah, I'd say go ahead with the roll call, and we'll get going.
Okay. All right. Cheney?
Here.
Sassy? O'Donnell?
Here.
Tortel?
Here.
Sierra? Menuda?
Here.
Stiganga?
Here.
Ruskevich?
Here. And I apologize, we still need to do the pledge to the flag, so everyone could please join me for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
and to the republic
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
with
and justice
liberty
for all.
and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Fagione, did you need to reconvene the rules?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Ruskevich. And Kelly, if you would, could you please call the roll for the Rules Committee?
I can. Amo?
Here.
Benelli?
Here.
Cheney?
Here.
Hines?
Here.
Kulisek?
Here.
Paduk,
Here.
Vero,
Still here.
and Fagion,
I'm here too.
all present.
Okay.
Paul, the floor is yours, my friend. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman Fagione. You're a tough act to follow. I don't have my copy of the Constitution with me, but I'll do the best we can here. Yeah, with that, we have Alan Sorensen with us today, along with Kelly Morris, Senior Planning and Project Manager, to discuss the Ag Districts 1 and 2 seeker, as well as the 8-year review and annual review. So with that, I will turn it over to Alan and Kelly, and the floor is yours. Oh, you're still muted, Alan.
There you go. Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, we, as you know, we're going through the 8-year review of the agricultural districts for Orange County. You have 2 districts, Districts 1 and 2. Part of the plan moving forward this year is that we will be merging the 2 districts into 1 district. We've gone through, I would characterize it as a grueling process of reviewing all the parcels within the agricultural district. Just to give you some statistics, countywide, we had, there were 14,735 parcels within the agricultural district. Recommendation is to add 106 parcels, to remove 7,981 parcels, and to keep 6,754 parcels. The number of parcels sounds pretty dramatic, but I want to put that in perspective. We're looking at the land area that was in the agricultural districts after this amendment will be reduced by about 13%. So there is still a significant amount of agricultural land in Orange County, and the reason for the changes, we have the opportunity this time around to really use our geographic information systems data, coordinating with real property, so we look literally. Kelly Morris, Jen McLeod from my office, Veronica Fernandez, who's our GIS tech. Working with my team here, we literally looked parcel by parcel through every one of those parcels to identify which property should stay in, which one should come out. We developed a map that showed the properties to add, remove, and keep within each district. And then we sent those maps to each of you as legislators, as well as to the towns. The towns reviewed them and provided comments back to us. And so what you see in the report is a culmination of that intensive effort to really identify which properties should remain in the district. Give an example of some of the properties that have come out of the district. Those would be lands that were formerly farmlands that were subdivided and subsequently developed for single-family residential homes. That's the vast majority of the large number of parcels that are coming out of the agricultural districts. Obviously, there's some commercial development that's occurred on, former farmland, so those properties are being removed. But through this process, we think we have a solid benchmark for moving forward in terms of benchmark of where the state of agriculture is in Orange County. And the next step in this process is the public hearing, which you have scheduled for September 3rd. We also have just sent out a mailing that's gone out to approximately 12,500 households. So anyone who is affected by the Ag District gets a notice, and that mailing notice has gone out, and then we had the public hearing. So, following the public hearing, we'll accept public comment till 10 days following the public hearing. And based on the public hearing, there may be some refinements to the final recommendations that will then be submitted to Ag and Markets.
Them to go online and complete it.
Okay, yeah, Alan, just to clarify, the mailings that are going out, those are being sent to any property owners that are being added or removed, as well as anyone who might have been in Ag District 2, which will now, I guess, all be Ag District 1.
That is correct. That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I see Legislator Benelli has a hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan, one quick question. In looking at the database and the charts by municipality, I did not see the town of Woodbury was mentioned, but not the village of Woodbury. Is that because it's encompassing in the town? Because all of all the parcels of the village of Woodbury are actually in the town of Woodbury. So, but usually we see it listed and it wasn't listed.
I'll need to
get back to me on that.
Yeah, I'll need to get back on that.
You can get back
Okay.
to me. Yes.
Okay.
And my other question, actually, you answered in your presentation. There seemed to be a dramatic amount of parcels that were removed from the town of Blooming Grove. I think it was like 3 or 4 pages, but now that you've explained it, I'm satisfied with your answer. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, I see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, I see Legislator Kulisek has his hand up, and then Cheney. Legislator Kulisek, you have a question, or you put your hand down?
No, I'm sorry. My hand was up from earlier. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yep. I see Legislator Cheney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, just a question on the 100 and some parcels that are added. How does that take place? I know that we're adding two parcels under, applications. How is it that those 180 some, I believe it is, parcels are added without that process?
Okay, we actually got clarification on that. I had reached out to Antoinette on that, and under the state Ag and Markets law, during the 8-year review, the legislature has the ability to add parcels, proactively add parcels into the agricultural district. And so that's what's occurring here in this instance. So the properties that are being added, the vast majority of them are already are actually outside of the agricultural districts, but they're properties that are being used for farming and that are receiving an agricultural exemption, and that's how we flag those for inclusion in the district.
So they've received an agricultural exemption, but they weren't in the district. So you're kind of melding those two programs.
Well, it's not that we're melding the programs, but one of the things that we're trying to achieve with the Ag District update, and the reason we looked at the parcels so closely, under the Ag and Markets law, the lands within the agricultural district have to be lands predominantly used for farming, and so so it was important that we took out the single-family residential homes, because that was and a backup, and the state defines predominantly as 50% or more. So our percentage was well below the 50%. So, when we started this process, we had 2 goals in mind. One is to make sure that it was accurate as possible. 2 was to, increase the percentage of lands within the district that are actually viable for farming purposes.
I guess the process we go through on an annual basis requires an application, and sometimes as a part of that, we get feedback from the neighbors at the public hearing that say, no, this should not be. It would appear that for these 180 some parcels, that decision has been made by staff and yourself, and there's then limited notice to neighbors and opportunity for them to comment. Is that correct?
Well,
Mr. Cheney, if I could answer that, Mr. Riskevich?
Yes, go ahead, please. I see your hand's been up.
Okay, so when Ag and Markets Law originated as far as agricultural districts, only provided for the 8-year review. Well, I think it was 8, 15, 20. They gave each municipality, each county's an option to choose their review. So we opted in Orange County to do the 8-year review. I guess it was in the 1970s. And that review was to add or remove properties. And the notice is we provide the landowners with notice and an opportunity to be heard. So the notice is provided through the letters that we sent out to them. It is posted on the Orange County website under the Department of Planning as well as the legislative website, and it includes the maps. Planning has the maps for each municipality as well as the total consolidated map. Then years ago, Ag and Markets and the legislature revised the Ag and Markets Law to provide for an annual review. But during the annual review, only landowners could request their properties to be added. There is no review of the totality of the districts, nor can we remove parcels. But that was something that I guess landowners were requesting to be added each year. So we are complying with the law. Any neighbors, we never send notice to neighbors to let them know during the annual review that someone is asking to be added to the agricultural district. We provide full disclosure on our website about what properties are requesting through the annual review. We have the list that I will tell you with real property tax under Eric Ruscher and Planning Department. They have spent weeks in setting up and establishing the list of landowners. That was a monumental task for them to do. So that, and each landowner will receive that letter as well as municipal supervisors. And when we did this review, each legislator received a map of the properties that were going to be added or removed, and they were marked and colored so that you could review them. It was also sent to the local supervisors, town supervisors. We've received feedback from them. So we've done a lot of due diligence during this period. We started it in March, and they've been spending a lot of time. There's been a lot of energy, and I think this is the most comprehensive report we have ever gotten on the agricultural and the ag districts. So, and just so you know, the Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board have reviewed this. They are meeting again tonight to see the updated, new and revised report. And so then we will have our public hearing on September 3rd, and any landowner or neighbor could come in and provide their comments. It's going to be done remotely because we're still under the governor's executive orders, and we'll receive public comment. And then that will all come to the legislative body, to this joint committee, and you will determine whether you want to take some properties out or add properties. Totally your prerogative. And then once you decide it, we're anticipating that at the November 5th meeting, the legislature will vote on this, and then it will be certified. It will be sent to the Commissioner of Ag and Markets, and he will certify it, and we'll have one agricultural district. And it will really clarify what properties are being used for agricultural purposes.
Okay, does that answer your question, Legislator Cheney?
Yeah, it does. I guess it just seems that there's an inconsistency between the yearly and the 8-year, and the 8-year, as I think Council pointed out, has been more like a 24-year, because a lot of the properties in the village of Warwick that we recognized have had homes on them since the mid or the mid 80s at least. So it's good that we've taken this opportunity to clean it up. I applaud the planning office for getting this and doing a very difficult job, but much appreciated, and let's move forward.
Well, thank you. It was definitely a team effort, and I want to thank Antoinette Reed in particular in helping to guide us through this process. Everyone in the planning office really stepped up. It was a grueling amount of work, but we wanted to get it right, and we're grateful for the opportunity to assist you in this effort.
Okay, I see Chairman Fagione has his hand up there.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to echo what Council said, Antoinette Reed said, take a time and read through this whole report. Take the time and look at the documentation and look at the research and look at the effort that was put through and put forth. And I just want to commend our Office of Real Properties. I want to commend our planning office. Kelly Morris did a fantastic job. Commissioner Sorensen, thank you for your leadership in this. And Antoinette said it best. This is probably one of the biggest and most robust reports that we've received. I remember just a couple of years ago with the addition to the comprehensive report, the chapter on transportation, and having public hearings about that. And I thought, wow, this is pretty thorough. This is pretty detailed. But I was literally blown away reading and looking at the data points in this report. So compliments to our county employees and our county staff. People really stepped up and put together a world-class document here. And I'm sure that through deliberation and at the end, we'll see through this and we'll vote in the affirmative to accept it as is. So thank you, Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, you're welcome. And yeah, I just want to echo those comments. I know everybody involved have put in quite a bit of work, and this is probably the most comprehensive 8-year review the county's ever done. So thank you for that. Any other questions from committee members or legislators? Nope. Okay.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
Just to, are we dealing with the 1-year review as well, the 2 parcels? I had some questions on that, or is that coming up later?
You can go ahead and ask those questions now if you'd like.
All right. I noticed that the 1 parcel in the town of Montgomery talks about composting organic fertilizer, and they also raise some cows and sheep. Just curious as to whether you might know if that activity is a regulated activity by the state, the composting operation, and whether they've, whether it produces odors.
It probably depends on the size of the composting operation. I know larger ones are probably pretty regulated. I'm not familiar with that one. That would probably be a better question for Eric Rusher. I know he's visited the sites. Normally the Ag and Farmland Protection Board does site visits, but given the situation, we didn't do that this year. But I know Eric has visited the sites. And that
okay, I'll reach out to Eric.
Okay, and then again, any operation is going to have to follow local zoning laws and also the good agricultural practices. So,
thank you.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Okay. As it was stated, we're gonna, next step is going to be our public hearing, and after that, I believe in November we vote on the final plan.
Yes, it would be, I think, November 5th.
November 5th. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, that's all I have. Chairman Fagione, unless you have anything else, I think we could probably adjourn.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Could I get a motion from E&E to adjourn?
Cheney, so move.
Okay. Is there a second?
Total second.
All right. Thank you. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And for the Rules Committee, a motion to adjourn?
Cool, a second.
And a second?
Motion.
All right. You all have a very good evening. Enjoy, and we'll see you all soon. Be well.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Before
Mr.
I do
Chairman?
depart, I do have something, and I wanted to try to capture, if Mr. Brescia, Mr. Amo, Mr. Paduk, and Katie just stick with us for just a minute. And I think Mr. Amo, he may have just ditched me, so I gotta see if we can retrieve him. But, Mr. Paduk,
Well,
if you
if
could just
we-
hold on for a moment.